Hi, my name is Annie. Welcome to my channel. Today I will be showing you how to make this very cute yellow jessamine granny square. This granny square is part of my state flower granny square project, and the yellow jessamine is the state flower of South Carolina. Two things before we get started with the tutorial. First of all, this is an easy intermediate level tutorial, so if you have any previous crochet experience, you've maybe made some granny squares in the past, I'm sure you can follow along with this tutorial. If you're very new to crochet, I would recommend you start with one of my beginner-friendly tutorials before moving on to this one, because in those beginner-friendly tutorials, I show in a lot of detail the basic crochet stitches and techniques that I needed to make granny squares. A second thing to mention is that this is my original design, so you are more than welcome to use the squares that you make with the tutorial in any of your crochet projects. The only thing that I ask is that you give me credit for the design, and I will include super simple instructions for that in the description of this video. To make this granny square, you are going to need 3 different colors of yarn if you want to make yours in 3 different colors like I've done here. So I have these 2 different yellows for the flower, and then I have this kind of grayish or heathered indigo for the background. And the yarn that I'm using is this 100% cotton yarn. It's a number 3 lightweight yarn. Then you're also going to need a crochet hook, one that matches the weight of your yarn that you picked, a yarn needle for weaving in your ends, and a pair of scissors. We are going to start our granny square from the middle, so we will make the center of the flower first. And for the center part, we are going to need 10 double crochet stitches around a ring. So go ahead and grab the color that you would like to use for the center. I'm using this darker yellow. And I start by making a slip knot. And I put it on my hook, pull it tight. And then I will chain 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now I will bring this into a ring by slip stitching here into the first stitch. If you prefer starting your granny squares with a magic ring, feel free to do that. Alright, I slip stitched there, and then I chain 2. And now this chain 2 is going to count as my first double crochet. So I need 9 actual double crochets around this ring. So to make the first one, I need to pull this apart a little bit to see where the center of the ring is, and it is right here. Okay, be careful not to insert your hook into that opening up there. It's kind of more obvious than this one, but that's not the center. Okay, the center is here, right underneath it. So I'll make a double crochet, yarn over, I insert my hook in the center, bring that yarn through. I have 3 loops on my hook. I go yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. There's my first actual double crochet. I make another one. And now I can see the center of this ring a lot better. So I need 10 double crochets in total, including that initial chain 2. I know some people like to chain 3 there for a double crochet, so if that's what you prefer to do, feel free to do it your way. This is my preference. All right, let's see how many I got here. I lost count there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So I need 2 more. Here we go. And then I will join this round by slip stitching here, and I like to go to this first stitch here on the outside. I know people also have different preferences about this, so feel free again to do it your way. The only important thing here is that you will have 10 stitches here on the outside for our next round, because that's what we need for the petals. Okay, I chain 1 and then I break my yarn. And I'll show you here one more time how I count my stitches, because you might do it differently, but what we want to make sure is that we have 10 stitches on the outside. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So for me, I also count this stitch that I slip stitch into to close the round. I count this as my 10th stitch. So again, if you close your round differently, you know, you do anything differently here, that's fine. Just make sure that you have the 10 stitches on the outside, because that's what we need for our petals. All right, we are going to start working on our petals. So go ahead and grab your next color. I'm using this lighter yellow for the petals. And I like to attach my yarn with a slip knot. So I'll make another slip knot and I put it on my hook. And then I attach my yarn into one of these 10 stitches here on the outside. So I insert my hook in the stitch, and then I bring this yarn through, and I pull it through the loop on my hook. And here I always like to turn my work and just pull this tight to make sure that this initial where the yarn is attached, it doesn't escape anywhere. So there's my yarn, and I'm going to start by chaining 3. 1, 2, and 3. And now I'm going to work 5 3D petals around the center. And I'm going to show you how to make one of these petals, because they are all going to be exactly the same, okay? So I'll show you one, and then feel free to go back, rewind, and watch that as many times as you want to. So I chain 3 there to start my first petal. And now I'm gonna go into the next stitch here on the outside. So I attach my yarn here. I'm gonna go to the next stitch, and I'm going to work what I call partial treble crochets there. So basically, we are making treble crochets that we don't quite finish yet, okay? That sounds confusing. I'm gonna show you, and I think it's gonna make a lot more sense. So I go yarn over twice as if I'm starting a treble crochet. Then I insert my hook here in the next stitch. So not where the yarn is attached, but in the next one. I insert my hook there. I grab that yarn and I bring it through. Now I have 4 stitches on my, or 4 loops on my hook. I go yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and I stop. So now if this was an actual treble crochet, I would go yarn over and pull through 2 one more time, okay? But I don't quite want to finish this treble crochet yet, so I just pull through those 2, or I mean pull through 2 twice, okay? And I have 2 loops on my hook. I make another one, so yarn over twice, insert still in the same stitch, pull the yarn through. I have 5 loops on my hook. I go yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and I stop. Now I have 3 loops on my hook. And at this point, I'm gonna go yarn over one more time, and I pull through all 3. So I kind of finished those 2 treble crochets at once there. And next I'm gonna do the exact same thing again in the same stitch. So I go yarn over twice as if I'm starting a treble crochet. I insert my hook in the same stitch where I have those previous 2. I bring the yarn through, 4 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2, and I stop. I have 2 loops on my hook. Yarn over twice. I insert in the same stitch still, bring the yarn through. I have 5 loops on my hook. I go yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and I stop. Now I have 3 loops on my hook. I go yarn over and I pull through all 3. Now I have these are kind of like 2 clusters of 2 treble crochets in that same stitch. And then I go and I chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. And then I'm gonna go ahead and slip stitch into the next stitch here on the outside. So not anymore in this same where I have all these treble crochets or the clusters of treble crochets, but in the next one. Slip stitch, pull that tight, and I chain 3, which is going to start my next petal. So this is how I'm going to work all of my petals. So this here, this chain 3 is the beginning of my second petal. So if you need to, feel free to go back. I know it can be confusing with those clusters, you know, when you stop, how many loops you have on your hook. So feel free to go back and watch again how we made this petal, and then make 4 petals exactly the same way. And once you're done, meet me back here. All right, I have worked my 5 petals, and now I'm ready to close this round. So I have here those last 3 chain stitches after the 2 clusters of 2 treble crochets. And now I'm going to slip stitch this into the very same stitch where we first started the round. So where I attach my yarn and I chained the first 3 stitches to start my first petal, I'll go in the very same stitch. And I slip stitch there. All right. And now, if you have made a 3D Wildflower granny squares with me before, you're gonna know what happens next. So for the next round, we are going to be working loops of chain stitches behind these petals. We can't see the loops in this finalized square because the loops are gonna be covered up with the background color when we make the next round, okay? But for this round now here, we're gonna be working loops of chain stitches behind the petals. And those loops are what allows us to crochet the rest of the square. So I'm here, I have just slip stitched here to secure that last petal. So I'm gonna start right at this point. So between these two petals where I just slip stitched. And I might need to pull these petals apart a little bit. And I'm gonna chain 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now this is my first loop, and I'm going to secure it here behind the petals. So we're gonna be working behind our work. And what I like to do, I'm gonna secure it here between these two petals. This is where it starts. I secure it there. So what I like to do is I like to pick up 1 stitch from this side and 1 stitch from the other side. So the 2 loops here that are the closest to each other, so 1 from each petal. And then I'll just grab that yarn, I pull it through those 2 loops, and I pull it through the loop on my hook. And that's my first loop. And I'll make another one. I chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I go again here and I slip stitch between these 2 petals. 1 loop from each side. And slip stitch. So now, as we can see, I have 2 loops here and I need 3 more. If you're wondering, by the way, what happened to my ends, I've been using my weaving as you go method. I'll link to a separate tutorial for that one in the description of this video if you want to check it out. But I love weaving in as I go because if I have all the ends to weave in at the end, I just find it really overwhelming. But of course you can weave in whichever way you prefer. So I keep chaining 4 and then slip stitching here between those 2 petals. One more. And here in the last one, it's a little bit harder to see, but here I also pick up 1 from this side and 1 from the other side. And then to make this extra secure, I slip stitch here to the start of this loop, like so. I chain 1, and then I can fasten off. And here's my yellow jessamine. All right, we're gonna bring in our background color next. I am using this I really love this color. I think it's like a heathered indigo or grayish indigo, purple. Not sure what the official name is, but I love it with that yellow, 2 shades of yellow. Okay, so I attach my yarn with the slip knot again. And now I'm going to attach my yarn into one of these loops here that I just made in the previous round. And I attach it here right in the beginning of the loop. So in that loop, I don't attach into like any individual stitch, just in the loop. I pull that tight. I kind of hold the knot here with my nail, and then I pull this end, and that kind of makes it really nice and secure. I found that works for me. Okay, so we're going to be working here into these loops next, and I'm going to start by chaining 2. And now I'm going to work 8 half double crochet stitches into each one of these loops. You can kind of see it here. That's the loop behind the petal, and those are 8 half double crochet stitches there. So this initial chain 2 here counts as my first half double crochet. So I need 7 more for this loop. So half double crochet is yarn over, insert in the space, pull the yarn through. I have 3 loops on my hook, yarn over and pull through 3. Half double crochet. Yarn over, insert in the space, bring the yarn through, yarn over, pull through 3. So I make 8 total for this loop, including the initial chain 2, which is not actually a half double crochet, but it counts as a half double crochet. Okay, anytime I start talking, I lose count, so let's see how many I got. Initial chain 2 counts as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I need 1 more. All right, there it is. And after those 8 half double crochets, I move straight into the next loop, and I work 8 half double crochets into that one as well. So yarn over, insert in the space, bring the yarn through, yarn over, pull through 2. Pull through 3. There it is. So nothing we need to do in between the loops. You just move straight into the next loop once you have finished 8 half double crochets in the previous one. So this is how we work all around our work. So working 8 half double crochets into each loop. So feel free to go ahead, work around yours, and then meet me back here. All right, I worked all my half double crochets, and I'm ready to close this round. So there are my last 8 half double crochets, and now I slip stitch here to the beginning of this round. Personally, I like to go to the second stitch here, counting from the bottom. So remember how we chained 2. So I go 1, 2, and I slip stitch there to close the round. But again, however you close your rounds is a-okay. Again, the only important thing is that the stitch count here doesn't change, so you still have 8 stitches in this loop. All right, so now we're gonna start turning this into a square, and that's what this next round is going to do. So we're gonna be creating clusters of double crochet in the corners, 2 clusters, separated by a chain 2. And then for the side, we make a cluster of half double crochets. And combining those two different kind of stitches is what turns this into a square. And now the yellow jessamine, like I have found so many other flowers, has 5 petals, okay? And fitting a 5-petal flower on a square that has 4 sides is a little bit of a challenge. So actually those 8 half double crochet stitches that we made in these loops, 8 was not just like a random number, okay? 8 stitches in each loop is what allows us to divide those stitches evenly for the 4 sides, okay? So it's gonna take a little bit of counting here for this next round. I'm gonna go really slow, okay? So you can follow along. And if you need to, I think you can slow me down in the settings of the YouTube. So feel free to do that too if this is too fast, okay? But basically what we're going to do is we're going to start our next round on the stitch number 6 of this loop here, where I'm currently at. And we count to 6 from this point here where these 2 petals join, okay? The petals join here. This is where I'm currently at. And I'm gonna show you how I count these stitches. So the first stitch here I count for this loop is this one, okay? So if we look here on the outside, it's this loop that's kind of over this first stitch that's on this loop. This stitch is over the stitch that's on the next loop, okay? So this one belongs to this side. And this one here is the first stitch for this loop, okay? So we're gonna count from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Stitch number 6 is this one, and I'm currently here where I joined this round. So I'm gonna need 2 slip stitches to get to that point. So I'm just gonna go straight into the next stitch in slip stitch. And the next one and slip stitch. There we go. And now I'm gonna double check that I'm in the right stitch and I still have 8 stitches in this loop, okay? If you have made this kind of granny or this 3D granny squares with me before, you already know this, okay? So please bear with me. I'm explaining this in case this is, your first time making this kind of granny square with me, okay? So I count here again. This is the first one. It's the loop that's over this first stitch on this loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm currently in stitch number 6. And then on the other side of this one here, I have 1 and 2 stitches here on the outside. So still have 8 total in that loop. And then this stitch here is the first stitch on this other side. Okay, so again, this is the stitch that's over the stitch that's in this loop here. Okay, do make sure that you still have those 8 stitches. It's gonna make it easier for this next round. And once I'm here in the correct stitch, I'm going to chain 2. And I'm going to work my first corner right here. So I chain 2, and next I will create 2 double crochet stitches in this very same stitch. So I go yarn over, I insert in the same stitch, pull the yarn through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So that initial chain 2 there counts as a double, double crochet for me, okay? And then I make 2 actual double crochets to create my first corner cluster. And then I'm going to chain 2 for the corner, 1 and 2. I skip the next stitch here and I go into the next one and I create 3 double crochets into that stitch as well. So yarn over, insert in the stitch, yarn over, pull through 2 and yarn over, pull through 2. So 3 double crochets here for this cluster. There we go. There's my first corner. So my first corner is 2 clusters of double crochet separated by a chain 2, and I skipped 1 stitch there in between those 2 clusters. Then I'm going to make my side, and I'm going to skip 3 stitches here on the side. So 1, 2, 3. I go into the 4th one and I make 3 half double crochet stitches into that stitch. So yarn over, insert the hook, pull the yarn through, yarn over and pull through 3. So 3 half double crochet stitches into that same stitch. There it is. That's my first cluster for the side. And then I work my next corner. So after the half double crochets here, I skip 3 stitches again. 1, 2, 3. I go into the 4th one and I create 3 double crochets into the same stitch. Three double crochets, I chain 2, I skip 1, I go into the next one, and 3 double crochets there as well. Here we go. Let's see what we got so far. So I got 2 corners and 1 side worked so far. And the rest of this side, so we need 3 more sides. They're going to be exactly the same as this one. And the 2 remaining corners are going to be exactly the same as this corner here. So now if you need to, feel free to rewind, go back here, see how we made this side. Make the next side the same way. See how we make this corner and make the next corner the same way. So essentially we are creating 2 clusters of double crochet for the corners, separated by a chain 2, and we skip 1 stitch in the middle of those corner clusters. And then in the side we create a cluster of half double crochets, and we skip 3 stitches on both sides of that cluster of half double crochets. So totally understand, you need to watch this again, so feel free to rewind, go back here, watch that part again, and work all of your square exactly the same way as this side and this corner, and then meet me back here. Alright, I have worked all around my square, and actually it is a square right now, it's not a circle anymore. And I'm going to join this round. So now if I have counted my stitches correctly, I should have 1, 2, and 3 stitches here before I join. And here I like to go to this first stitch here kind of on the outside, and I slip stitch there. If you don't have 3 stitches there, you might need to troubleshoot. It's happened to me before that I have skipped the wrong amount of stitches in between the clusters, or that I haven't had the 8 stitches, 8 half double crochets in each one of those loops. So if you don't have the right amount there, troubleshoot and see where the issue is so you can fix it. All right. there is my square, and now actually if I turn it this way, I will also see that I have this yellow jessamine is very nicely positioned straight in the middle of the square, in the sense that I have this one petal here that's kind of in the middle of this side here, and then these two petals here on the other side. So it's really, really nicely sits on our square. All right, so now the rest of the square is actually going to be super easy. So we're going to be creating 2 more rounds of stitches, and these 2 rounds are going to be granny stitches all around. So we'll just create clusters of double crochet into these spaces between the clusters of the previous rounds. And in the corners, we do 2 clusters separated by a chain 2 again. So I'm here right where I closed the round, and I slip stitch my way to this corner because I like to start my rounds here in the corner whenever possible. So I've chained 2, which counts as my first double crochet. And I work 2 more double crochet stitches for this cluster. And there it is, my first cluster. I chain 2 for the corner. And then I work another cluster of 3 double crochets into the same corner space. If you have made granny squares before, this is going to feel very, very familiar to you because we're just working granny stitches all around. All right, there's my first corner. So 2 clusters of double crochet separated by a chain 2. I move onto the side and I create a cluster of double crochets into the space between the previous rounds clusters. I had an audio issue here, so I'm recording this part afterwards. I hope that this sounds okay and makes sense to you. But I'm creating here 3 double crochets into that space. And then I'm just going to work all around, working these clusters of 3 double crochets into each one of those spaces. There it is. And then in the corner, 3 double crochets for the first cluster of the corner. Then I chain 2 for the corner, and then another cluster of 3 double crochets into that same corner space. And there it is. So I've worked 2 corners and 1 side here. So you can just work all around and meet me back where we started. Here we go. I worked all around the square, and now I'm joining this round with a slip stitch into that first stitch there, kind of on the outside. And then I slip stitch my way to the next corner to start the final round. So I'm going to be doing exactly the same thing as the previous round. So granny stitches all around. In this corner, 2 clusters of double crochet. I start with a chain 2 there. chain 2 for the corner, and then another cluster of 3 double crochets into that same space. There it is, the first corner, and then I work a cluster of double crochets into that next space. All right, so this is how we work all around the square. Clusters of double crochet into those spaces, and then in the corners 2 clusters separated by the chain 2. So work all around and then meet me back in the beginning. So here we go, I have finished my granny square. I'm just gonna join this round with a slip stitch. Again, in this first stitch there on the outside, then I'll chain 1. I break my yarn, and I can fasten off. There it is. My yellow jessamine granny square is all done. Here I just need to weave in those ends. I only have those 2 since I've been weaving them in as I go, and then block the square. But otherwise it's all done. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. I apologize for this audio issue. Hopefully the ending wasn't too confusing. I really appreciate you. I would love to hear what you thought about this tutorial, so please leave me a comment. Also like this video and subscribe if you liked the tutorial. And if you're sharing pictures on Instagram, please tag my account. It's Wildflower and Stitch. I would love to see your squares. And thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.